Hello. Hello, hello. Welcome to Merriment Mondays. Today we are talking about kindness. And before we get into that, I hope you've had a good weekend. It's the beginning of the week. I have been sick this whole past week. Matt and I both got sick. And today is honestly the first day that we are feeling kind of like humans. Good morning. And yes, I had like no voice. You can kind of still hear it. Our lymph nodes were just swollen, and it was just like a whole thing. But finally feeling back to kind of normal, and yeah. So let's see. What magical merriment moments did you have in the past week? I can tell you mine. Even though we didn't really get to leave the house or anything, I did have to go to the pharmacy, and I made the most of that. So when I went to the pharmacy, the lobby had this beautiful calendar, and they had taken this like beautiful chalk and made it say all the unusual holidays that are coming up, and you can see it there. It's like really beautiful, and they'd illustrated almost every single day, and I thought that was gorgeous. There was also this car in the parking lot that had these really cute stuffed animals and this beautiful pink detailing. Also, if you don't know anything about me somehow, then you might not know that ducks are hot. I love ducks. Ducks are one of my favorite things, and I've been saying ducks are so hot right now for a very long time. And this year, finally, it like manifested in the world, and the way that happened with ducks kind of coming into the zeitgeist is through Jeeps. So Jeep culture is its own unique thing, and if you can see like on the dashboards of Jeeps that they do what I do now, and they have little rubber duckies on their dashboards. And this person also has different stuffed animals and stuff, but if you zoom in, you can see that there's a bunch of different little rubber ducks, and Jeeps do that. They have all sorts of rubber ducks on their dashboards. And I remember being in it was much early in the very beginning of 2023. I was at a shop in Delaware, and there were ducks everywhere, and I thought, finally ducks, everybody's on board with ducks being hot. And why is this? Why is everybody finally getting on board? And I asked the woman, why are you finally carrying ducks? What is the thing? And she told me about the Jeeps, and I was like, okay, that's how the world is gonna make this happen. So yeah. And then the other picture that was on there was Giuseppe, one of my cats, who was looking extra fluffy and fat. And I have the new iPhone, which allows you to zoom in, so I didn't even have to get up from where I was feeling so sick on the couch to take a picture of him. So very, very nice about that. Okay, and then I'd love to know what your gratitude, magical merriment moments were for this week. And in terms of good news out in the world, for me, what I witnessed, I didn't really get to be out in the world this week, honestly. But I did have my dad, like I said, I was sick. My dad brought me some soup, and that's good news. And doesn't really have a picture. I didn't take a picture of the soup, but that's good news. And also, even though Matt was sick, he also did a really good job of taking care of me as well. And I think that is warranted as good news. And in terms of good news that's not necessarily in my world, but out in the world, there's this woman named Pauline in Wyoming who started back in July, and she made personalized snowmen and families of snowmen, snow people, for people in her town. Every single person in the town. Like, she made one, not just for a family, but every single member of the family. She made sure that everybody has the right colored eyes and everything. Like, it's really adorable. And I think it's very cute. And it's just this little town in Wyoming. And look at that. She made one for everybody. And I think that is like such a cute gift. Okay, so I want to let you know that the Merriment Makers membership is open for enrollment, and you can absolutely join whenever you want to. Today we're going to talk about kindness, but there's going to be a whole kindness module that we're starting after the creativity module, which is now. So the latter half of December and all of January, we're going to be talking in the Merriment Makers, which is exclusive content all about kindness. So if you see me talking about kindness here today on my podcast, on social media this week, and you want to learn about practicing conscious kindness in a more thorough way, then please come and learn more through the membership program of the Merriment Makers, which is a wonderful community. And there's also just really great resources in there for other things as well. There's 1,000 resources for other things. There's like 30 modules that exist in there as soon as you come in. There's good news texts every day. There's monthly mail that you get. There's a bunch of things that you get. So I just want to let you know that that is always something that you can join in. There's open enrollment, and you can enter that. And it's also a really great gift to give for somebody else. If you want to give them a month worth of joy, you can give the gift of joy, and you can go to uncustomary.org to find that. Okay, so also please like this episode, hit the little like button, that helps. And you can also subscribe to the channel and share the episode. Any of that always helps. Even just hitting the like button on the episode definitely helps. So thank you so much for your support and watching and listening, whether it's live or to the replay. I really appreciate you. Okay, so let's talk about kindness. So there's no agreed upon objective answer for the 4 principles of kindness, or just principles of kindness. This is something that I've researched, that I've looked up, and I've seen things like compassion, forgiveness, empathy, sympathy, and honestly, I feel like all of those are bordering upon the same energy. I think that, I believe that all of those are part of kindness. But I think we're missing a lot of components that I think are essential and vital for what I believe is kindness. And my favorite collection of principles happens to be from the Alliance of Sustainability. And these list the qualities of kindness as being awareness, unconditionality, non-judgment, and action. So I want to take a look at those some more today. And then I want to talk about why it is that we think that we're kind, but we think the world is unkind, and how that dichotomy is just not necessarily, it can't physically be true. Both things can't be true at the same time. We can't all think that we're kind, and then we can't live in such an unkind world. One of these things or both of these things have to be untrue. So we're going to lead into both of those things. And I'm sorry for my voice being scratchy. Okay, so the first principle is awareness. So awareness is like, when are the opportunities to be kind? So we can theoretically understand that we want to be kind, that we have, these acts of kindness ideas, right? Those lists of, I have 103 ways to be kind, 100 random acts of kindness ideas. These lists are bought in books, in magazines, online. They're, available to you at your fingertips constantly. These weren't really a thing more than 10 years ago, but they are now. And my point is that they're always around. Now, knowing that they're there, knowing what you can do, doesn't mean that you are doing it. or that you take advantage of that opportunity. So what we want to do is we want to be aware of how to interact with people, how to interact with the world. And if you aren't aware of those things, you won't be able to even take advantage of those situations. So we have to be able to look up and look around. So what I mean by that is, if you are at a store or something and you see a person who drops their stuff, and like and you're like, okay, that person dropped their stuff, and you keep going, the awareness is like connecting the dots there. You have to have the cognition to be like, okay, yeah, there's an opportunity here for me to help them, So there has to be the belief first to say, I'm a kind person, and kindness means that I would help somebody who has something less than desirable happen to them, right? Like in the situation where they would drop something. So like having these examples like at your fingertips is very helpful when you give representation to a situation that you come across. So like giving examples is really helpful, right? But every example can't always be listed. There's always going to be things that you come across that weren't listed on a listicle. It's just not always going to be relevant, right? It's going to be too nuanced for real life. Maybe there's somebody that's like gardening and loses a hose, and that's like running around, and then their kid is like in the driveway and there's like pebbles going everywhere, and you have to like that's not going to be on a listicle. You know what I mean? It's going to say like somebody who needs help because their hands are too full or something like that, because we can't come up with every single scenario. So maybe that wasn't specifically listed out for you on a listicle of ideas for how to be kind, but you have to be aware of the situation and say, oh, okay, I can generalize to this scenario and now understand that this applies to me. I think sometimes depending on who you are, you might zoom into details a lot, or you might zoom out a lot. And it's like, can't see the forest through the trees, or you can only see the forest, right? So if you have a hard time kind of like generalizing back to things, or you can't generalize, this is a really good thing to be aware of right here with this pillar, this principle of kindness with awareness. So I want you to become aware of connecting the dots and taking that autonomy upon yourself to say, okay, like I understand that not everything is going to be explained to me, and I have to take initiative and autonomy to say, okay, like I I know that the world is weird and messy, and however this situation shows up for me, I have to listen to my gut instinct and act within the realms of my boundaries, within the realms of my control, within the realms of what's safe for me to help out this person. So there's a lot of decisions that are being made within the awareness principle, right? Within this pillar of, is this okay? Am I gonna like offend this person? Am I going to be safe for myself? Is this better for them than it is for me? Is it better for me than it is for my future? There's a lot of things that are going on in an instant. And I get that. And I get that like this awareness aspect is actually something that really isn't talked about with kindness. It's something that we have to instinctualize and get used to. And for people that are not used to interacting with other people, especially as we integrate and move further into the technological era of being behind screens and not interacting in a human interaction, then it becomes more difficult for us to have these gut instincts and to not be able to generalize to things and make decisions based on our knowing, our intuition. This awareness piece is actually very, very important, and I'm not even realizing that until like this moment. I was gonna kind of blaze past this, but it's really important. So I want you to be able to practice looking up and around, looking around at the person or the situation that needs your kindness. And not just for kindness, but really for everything. Leaving your house, being in situations, being in rooms. You won't really understand what being in a room means, being out in the world, the way you move about the world. When you hear people say that, I know that that sounds weird. I know that the phrases like being in a room, how you move about the world, and those kinds of phrases sound very lofty and theoretical and really heady, kind of almost. But it's because there's certain things that lack a better way to describe them until you're in them. And really what it means is that you need to go out of your house. You don't really know, you won't need to navigate a room in your living room. Going into a room is about being at a party, being in an office, being in a waiting room, being in different scenarios with different cultures and different mixes of people. And if we're doing all of our shopping online, if we're only like being at home, working remotely and doing all these things and we're like isolating ourselves, then we're actually taking away opportunities from how we can influence and be impacted. And that is something that is actually also diminishing our lifespan. Isolation is taking 15 years off of our lives. So that's a whole other thing. But I want you to go out in the world. I want you to look for opportunities and practice this. And just think about how situations can use your kindness. Okay, so the awareness is the first part. The second part is unconditionality. And I'm not even sure that this is a word. Unconditional is, and then we just added ITY to it. And this is just to give with no expectation. So when you give a gift, and that includes an act of service, you can't expect anything in return. You can, but it's not going to work out best for anyone. So that includes expecting someone to be grateful or saying thank you for something. If you are expecting someone to say thank you for the recipient of the gift to love the gift or that you did that thing, or to think that you're a good person for doing that thing, you have created a pre-established condition or string attached to that thing. We need to let go. So I like to think about my street art as that. So when I make a poster, it's a really easy example. When I make a poster and I put it up on a building or a pole or whatever it is, that's a physical item, right? It's tangible, it's physical. I spent time on it. I used art, and then I'm posting it up in public with the intent that it is enjoyed. Sometimes it's interactive. Sometimes I want people to write on it. Sometimes I want people to just look at it. Do I want people to dislike it, to talk shit about it, to take pictures of it and make fun of it, to spray paint over it, to write mean comments on it, to take it down immediately, to take it and like rip it up, to put it in the trash? No, I don't want that to happen. I also don't even want the weather to like ruin it. I want people to enjoy it. I would love for people to take pictures of it and to tell me that they loved it. I would love for people to find me and become a client of my business as a result of it. Of course, I'm a human being and I have preferences. Absolutely. But my goal is to detach my preferences from that and think of it as a gift. To think of it as a gift and know that no matter how I feel about that preference, that this is a gift to the public, and whatever happens is not my responsibility anymore. The same way, like with a Christmas or birthday gift, they can regift it, they can throw it away, they can change it, they can hate it. It's not on me anymore. And how they react has nothing to do with me. I mean, it is my art, right? And it is your thing that you did. It is the thing that you did for them. It is the gift that you chose. And in that way, it feels like it is a little bit about you. And we can make it to feel a lot about ourselves. We really can. But most things aren't. Most of the time, the reason that the person is tearing down my art is because it's either their job to clean the street or they're mad about something that represents, right? Like they're mad because it looks like something that someone else did to them a long time ago. It's a longer issue than me. It's not usually about me. It's not really directly a Mary issue. And I want you to be able to kind of connect that to your kindness. What of your gifts that you are giving, when you are giving them, when you are sharing them, the joy that you are spreading, the kindness that you are sharing? What preferences do you have and what are you expecting? So try to think about what those are and try to detach from them as much as possible. Try to allow it to be okay if someone is to not say thank you. And because it's not as easy as just being like, oh, it's done now, I don't feel anything, because you're still human. Try to prepare yourself for it. I say, like, imagine what it would be like if someone said nothing. And then imagine what it would be like if someone said something negative. You know, do the worst case scenario. And sometimes, you know, preparing ourselves for the worst case scenario allows you to, like, sometimes it does like jolt your anxiety a little bit, you know? It's not necessarily good to live in that space, but it allows you to reach your fear. You know, you can say, okay, well, is that, because most of the time with our fear, it's the uncertainty of what can or can't happen. So if we are saying like, oh, I don't know what would happen if somebody like hated my work, you know? If someone is like, if I was in the space of, I'm not going to share my street art because I don't want to even think about what would happen if someone said something terrible to me about it. Or if I gave a gift to this person and I tried to be kind to them and they said something negative back to me, I don't think I could handle that. Like, but I want you to kind of trace that, because what is it that you're really afraid of? Is it because you're worried that somebody is going to say something bad to you and it's going to be about something that you can't confront? Is it about yourself? You know, like a truth that you're not willing to look at? Is it about like a safety issue at a workplace? Is it about like, is it about the fact that you don't feel worthy to be in the presence of the person that you're giving the gift to? You know, like there's usually a deeper issue, and that's more of a coaching thing, but I want you to kind of explore that root of the worst case scenario. And just do that for like a second, just as a thought exercise. And then you can prepare yourself for it. And it's better to be prepared than screwed, right? And then go do it. Go do the thing that you're going to do. And if someone doesn't say anything, you can just be like, that's okay, right? That's okay. And even if it doesn't feel okay, that's when you do like the fake it till you make it kind of thing. Fake it till you make it. And then there's tools that I do teach in the Merriment Makers membership where you can learn about like things that are like helpful coping skills that also are kind of defragging your brain. And we call them like shadow work sometimes. And all that is just like ways that kind of highlight the fear in a safe way. So things like emotional freedom technique of EFT, positive affirmations, mirror work, journaling, meditation, stuff that's focusing on the fear while reframing it. like cognitive behavioral psychology, positive psychology, these things that I teach in the Merriment Makers, those are the ways that when it feels like it's not okay, then you can kind of reframe it to being okay and hold the space for the fear and anxiety that you're experiencing and know that you can do difficult things because it's actually not going to murder you. Like when I did cognitive behavioral therapy for my OCD, it was like, it's kind of like exposure work, It's like if you're afraid of a spider, then you just like take different levels with like your relationship with a spider. Can you look at a spider? Can you be in the same room with a spider? Can you get a spider as a pet? All these different things have different levels of fear. So if you can imagine what it would be like to be told that it wasn't okay that you did this act of kindness, or you were told like you weren't told thank you. And I know that sounds kind of trivial to say, like, I wasn't told thank you. But it builds up over time. When we are people who are givers, and you are if you're listening, if you're someone who gives over and over and you don't feel like it's being acknowledged, not necessarily reciprocated, but even acknowledged or appreciated, it builds up resentment over time. And resentment can only exist if there's an expectation. So this is really important. If you don't have any expectations, which are based on pre-existing conditions that were not established, then you will not build resentment because there was nothing to resent. You will not become bitter because there was nothing to resent. So if you feel bitter, if you feel underappreciated, this might be because you are not actively aware of the conditions that you are setting in regards to the way that you are giving. So, please be aware of the boundaries that you're setting for yourself as a giver and the expectations that you are setting in relationship to your kindness. Okay, the next pillar and principle is non-judgment. So this is just the fact that we have no idea what someone else is thinking or experiencing. We have to give the benefit of the doubt. We have to assume benevolence. Imagine a scenario where what someone else is doing or saying, their behavior, is not about you. This is about not making things personal. I want you to accept people and give them grace the same way that you would want to be accepted and have grace given to you. So this is all, again, something that is easier said and something that we do say all the time, but I don't see being practiced. So a lot of the time we say things like, I can't believe you would think that about me. I can't believe you would assume that. Assumption is one of the worst things. Assumption equals judgment. We have to approach things with curiosity. Always. If you are going to assume something, you absolutely have to assume benevolence. You have to assume kindness. You have to assume good-heartedness. That is the only thing you're allowed to assume as a merriment maker. You can't assume maliciousness. You can't assume bad intentions. If you assume you have decided you know what someone else is thinking or experiencing, and would you want that done for you? No. So we are constantly in a state of being like, you don't know my life, so stop doing that for other people. Stop giving unsolicited advice. Stop assuming that you know what other people have done or haven't done on the way to this thing, this experience, whether they put in the effort that you know, whether they have or haven't researched something, whether they have or haven't tried something, whether they do or do not feel a certain way. It doesn't matter. If you want to know something, ask a question. If you want to give advice, ask if they're ready for it. We always want to know if we want our intentions to be assumed as good, and we want people to perceive our actions the way that they were intended to be received. But everyone is viewing stuff through the lens that they have experienced life through. That's the only way we can do that. It's the only way. So the way that I do something, if I go out on the street and I do something, 10 different people are going to look at it probably 9 or 10 different ways. Maybe 2 people will receive it the same way. But like, it's the same reason that if I'm at a comedy show, a guy on the stage says a joke and not everybody laughs, right? Because we don't all get it. Some people are laughing really hard, because it gets them in their life. They're like, oh my God, through the lens of my experience of my life, that hits home. That is funny. And some people are like, I don't even get that reference at all. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And some people are like, I get it, and that's really not funny to me. In fact, I'm like offended by it, right? So there's different ways to experience other people's behaviors and actions. So if you want to be accepted, then you have to start practicing acceptance. And it's not about this like live, laugh, love, accept everything. Like, no, it's literally in the tangibility of when something, this is about awareness, right? The awareness, when the opportunity, when the rubber meets the road, when you're in a conversation with someone, when your spouse or your roommate or your mother or whatever says something to you, and you're like, well, damn, that makes me feel a certain way, and I'm assuming I would bet money that they da-da-da-da-da. No, you fucking don't. Stop it. Ask first. Oh, did you mean this? Can I repeat back to you what you said? Let me say that again for you. Did you mean, can I just understand what you said? What did you mean by that? Da-da-da-da-da. Ask a question. Would you want to be asked a question before you were torched? Before someone bet money on what you were experiencing or feeling or doing? Ask questions. Be curious. Do you want help? Do you want advice? How do you feel? That's kindness. That's non-judgmental. The whole point of kindness is to be lifted up, not to be judged. Okay, and then the last pillar and principle is action. Doing something. It can't all be theory. It must come into practice. If you believe that you're a kind person and then you are presented with the opportunity, you have the awareness to be kind, and then you continue, and sometimes we have the opportunity, we see the opportunity. Somebody has spilled their stuff and we can't right now. Or we physically could, but we are making the choice that something is of more priority to us than that at that moment, right? To be kind at that moment. We have to go. There's an urgent appointment, your kid's screaming, whatever. Like, there's something more pressing on a higher priority than being kind in that moment. Absolutely. That happens. All the time that happens. That's real. Don't ignore that. Don't deny that either. But if you continue to skip that, to choose to not be kind every single time, your belief is only a belief and not an aligned value. It's not a way of living. It's not a lifestyle. So you have to walk your talk. You have to leave the house. You have to do the thing. You have to choose kindness, and you have to put kindness up as a priority, up high. Where is kindness on your rank of priorities? Where is it? When you put it, I mean, it's not probably as high as your kids, right? It's not probably as high as your spouse, right? It's not as high as eating, right? But where is it? Where is it on your list? It's not going to be as high for everyone. But if you're saying that kindness is in the top 10 for you, then you need to treat it as such. And if you skip it every single time, if you skip your opportunities every single time, you can't call yourself a kind person. A poet isn't a poet if they're not writing poems. Okay? So, it's okay that we have skipped opportunities to be kind. You have. I know you have. I have. We all have. But now let's talk about this reality of our scope, our perspective of why we think we're so kind. So, there was this study done by Human Kindness, this is their organization name. 48% of people think, 95% of people think they themselves are kind, okay? And 98% of people think that kindness is an important trait. I buy that, right? Most people, that's almost 100% of people, think that they're kind and that kindness is an important trait, okay? But 48% of people think society is generally unkind. And 50% of people think their kids are going to become less kind than their parents. I also buy that. But I buy that we believe that. But I don't understand the logistics. And I don't understand the logistics because it doesn't scientifically make sense. If almost 100% of the people are kind, then how is half of society unkind? You know what I mean? I mean, that's not exactly what the study's saying, but you get what I mean, right? This means that people are either overestimating how kind they are or underestimating how kind other people are, or both. So first, let's take a look at ourselves. When it comes to potentially overestimating how kind we are, we always want to think of ourselves as kind, right? And either 95% of the population is actually that kind, or we believe that we are kind. And then let's think about those 4 principles I just talked about. We get the opportunity to act kind, and we're not taking advantage of it. Or are we being honest? Is it easy for us to even think about the word kind and then say that we're not? And why is that? Is it a shameful thing to admit that we are unkind or have ever been unkind before? When we all have been unkind at some point. I have been unkind many times. So why is it that everyone except 5% of people would say, oh, I'm absolutely kind? And then what about how we view society? Underestimating how kind other people are. Are we doing that? I think so. I think that can happen when we expect things to look like us. What I was saying about non-judgment, I always think life doesn't look like us. I was thinking about I always think about this time that I was at the aquarium and I asked if we were allowed to touch the jellyfish, and I asked the lady if that was letting us touch her, the jellyfish, if it hurt them. And she said, of course not. It doesn't hurt them at all. And then I was like, how do you know that? She's so certain. How do you know that? And maybe that's the reason why when we go to other planets, we don't see life, because it just doesn't look like us. And we're expecting it to. And the same way that the joke doesn't hit everybody in the same audience, even though they all heard it the same way, the same sounds, the same words, the same acoustics. Maybe kindness doesn't look the same to us. Love languages don't look like ours. I remember once I brought over a balloon to someone who had just gotten out of the hospital, and she screamed at me. And it was because that balloon was Mylar, and they were very eco-conscious, and she didn't want that in her home. To me, I was being kind. To her, I was hurting the earth. Life doesn't always look like you. Kindness doesn't always look like you. Love languages don't always look like yours. Sometimes people don't have any idea that they aren't being anything other than kind. And then we take offense. Sometimes we are making mountains out of molehills. Sometimes you are. Sometimes I am. Sometimes we assume. Sometimes we assume a lot, actually. Sometimes that's all we're doing. I bet they do that. I'm going to put them in that box. I bet that's what they do. We hope people judge us based off our intent and our perceived action, what we hope we're putting out. But we don't give that same courtesy and compassion to other people. We need to give the benefit of the doubt. We have to come up with a scenario. What is the wildest scenario where the reason that they didn't text me back has nothing to do with me? Maybe the text didn't send. Maybe that weird scenario was the towers went out. Could that have happened? Yeah, it could have. Did it happen? I don't know. But could you ask? Could you ask, did you get that text, before you say, how dare you? That's kindness. Give a second chance. Taking action in this scenario is walking your talk in terms of belief. We don't see kindness represented enough also, because the way the news and media skews negativity lead us to believe that the world is full of negative and heinous acts and people. So it's also more difficult to believe that there is an accurate representation of goodness in the world. And maybe we feel like we're the exception. But really, the media and social media, I don't know, we have the opportunity to reverse that. And I talked about that in the good news episode. But I want to tell you that if 95% of people believe that at the end of the day, they're kind, let's take it down even. Let's say that 10% of those people are lying. 5% of them are honest. Let's say 10% of them are lying, okay? 85% of them at the end of the day are kind, good-hearted people. 85%, that's a B+. I can work with that. I can work with that. I don't know about you, but I can work with that. That's inspiring to me. That 85% of people, and that's me toning down what people believe about themselves. That's me giving a big curve. And then if we give a skew also to the 48% of people who believe that society is not good, not kind, can that be enhanced if we were to all act with curiosity, ask questions, assume goodness instead of judgment, act with compassion and curiosity, courtesy and compassion, instead of just holding this lofty belief that's embroidered on a pillow and a tote bag somewhere that doesn't really mean anything until the rubber meets the road when you see someone spill their stuff. What are you going to do? How high up on the priority list is kindness for you? That's what you need to ask. So, April says, wow, lots of good nuggets of truth in this talk, lots to think about and practice. Great. If you have any questions, let me know. So your homework is to think about how you can underestimate your own kindness. Where have you been underestimating your own kindness? Where can you amp that up? If we're all doing both of these things, let's assume both are true. Let's assume that we're underestimating our own kindness. And that means that we can increase our own kindness. Where can you start acting with more curiosity? Where can you start asking for more clarity and stop putting people into boxes? And where can you stop assuming things? If you can just stop assuming, like 20% of the time, you will do the world a beautiful favor. And then the second part is, where can you overestimate others' kindness? Where can you stop assuming judgment on others and start assuming goodness on others, right? So the only assumptions that you're allowed to make are of goodness, of good-heartedness. Maybe they intended that to be nice. Maybe the reason that they did that was actually in their way to be really nice. How can I reframe that? How can I reframe that? How can I reframe that? And this is a lesson for you to apply to other people. How can I reframe their behavior to be something good? That maybe they meant that to be kind. Maybe they weren't actually trying to be an asshole. Maybe they were trying to be kind. And I just don't get their love language. How can I reframe that? How can I reframe that? How can I reframe that? And then do it for yourself. When something's uncomfortable and you need to go back to those 4 principles, right? Which were what? Which were awareness, being aware of the opportunities that are around you, getting out of the house, looking around, being aware of who needs your kindness, unconditionality, giving with no expectations, non-judgment, assuming benevolence, and action, actually doing the thing. So when you meet that discomfort of, giving a gift and doing something nice, and then somebody just meeting you with complete neutrality or negativity, and you were like having the preference of someone greeting you with like a thank you, then use that discomfort and reframe it, and do your affirmations and tapping, or come on over to the Merriment Makers membership and we can work together on how to reframe that for yourself so that you can feel confident working on discomforting things. Because the only way to grow and to evolve is to lean into discomfort. And that includes positive things like gratitude, kindness, and joy. This week's deck, if you want to do a bonus assignment for the Merriment missions, I pulled the remind someone via voice message to look at the moon. And it's actually a new moon this week, but you can still tell them what kind of moon it is, and it'll be changing soon enough. And I sent this to my friend Janice that said, go look at the moon. It's a full moon. And yeah. So please like this episode, subscribe, share, comment on the episode. It helps everything boost up, and you can find me over on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everywhere at Merriment Maker. And you can also come on over to the Merriment Makers membership, and you can give the gift of a subscription, and you can find all the links to that at uncustomary.org. I've also been putting up pep talks and self-study trainings that you can get a la carte. All of those are also being loaded up onto uncustomary.org as well. So there's a lot of really cool things. Also, this deck is a really great gift for a stocking stuffer. And I have a bunch of other fun gifts like magnets and postcards and glitter pills and what else do I have? I have books, workbooks, printables, pins, pin backs. I have a bunch of little tiny fun, happy gifts that would be good for stocking stuffers, holiday gifts, birthday presents, anything. So those are on my Etsy as well. So I love you. I hope that this episode was good for you with kindness. This week we'll be sharing much more information on kindness. And like I said, this latter half of December and all of January, we'll be talking about kindness in the Merriment Makers. So if you want to dive deeper on kindness, come on over into the Merriment Makers membership, and we can learn more about how to practice conscious kindness together. I love you. Remember, you have to feel good to do good. I will see you this time next week for Merriment Mondays Live, and we will be talking about gratitude. All right. See you next time. Thanks for joining in. Bye-bye.